if you just perform bandwise dispersion compensation, it's not good enough. Okay, you need bandwise delay control as well. Why is that? 好，我们想象哦，你切成3块，3块各自都做完美的射散补偿，得到3个转换极限脉冲。好，假设这些都很完美，然后你把它合起来，你一定会得到一个更窄的脉冲啊。If you do not precisely control the relative delays, you got 3 separated pulses instead of 1 even shorter pulse, right? So delay control is very critical in this case. So how did they do that? Linear spectral phase or temporal delays are invisible for individual pulse shapes. Okay, use chirp mirrors or even use pulse shapers. No matter how hard you work, you cannot tell the delay. 因为你那些脉冲量测都看不到 delay 的资讯。Okay. But it's critical for synthesized pulse envelope. So you have to tune the absolute timing from via stages. Okay, there is 1, 2, 3 mechanical stages. Each one can be controlled to introduce proper delay, and you have to optimize all these 3 stages such that temporally the 3 individual pulses are perfectly overlapped with each other. Okay. 那这个也不容易啊！你想，每一个脉冲已经都只剩下6飞秒、8飞秒了，你要把它 align 到很准，这些需要的 precision 当然也都是很高的。Okay. But is it good enough? Controlling the individual dispersion as well as the relative delays, if you can do that, can you make sure you can create even shorter pulse? The answer is not. And the clue is in the previous step, we can compensate quadratic or even higher order spectral phase by chirp mirrors. In this step, we can control the linear spectral phase because it's about delay. So what's else? 除了2阶以上跟1阶，你还有一个东西 zeroth order or absolute phase is not included yet. And it turns out that we have to control absolute phase or CEP phase, carrier envelope phase, such that we can synthesize the desired electric field. Okay, so it's very complicated, right? Bandwise CEP control. Okay, absolute phases or CEPs are critical for synthesize the field. Okay, if you only care the envelope, CEP doesn't matter. But if you care the electric field, the oscillating field, CEP matters. Okay, that's the general principle. But in this time scale, say 2.1 femtosecond pulse, you cannot just care the envelope because the envelope itself is already too narrow, similar to the carrier cycle, right? And in this time scale, you have to care about the electric field. So there is no option. You have to control CEP. To tune the CEP, you can use wedge pair because it introduces different amounts of phase and group delays. Okay. You know the origin of CEP, right? Why there is non-zero CEP? Because pulse will propagate along different velocities. Carrier at phase velocity, envelope at group velocity. They are essentially different. So whenever your pulse propagates through some medium, there is non-zero CEP. And to compensate it, you have to create different amounts of phase delay and group delay. And that it can be achieved by a wedge pair like this. 好，这个 wedge pair 呢，就是 一对 wedge 然后你让它通过，比如说我在这边某一个 band 有一个 wedge pair， 你通过它的厚度是可以靠着这个错位来调整的。OK， 而且你调整的厚度的时候又不会影响你的这个 beam direction， because this setup has to be precisely aligned. You cannot tolerate when the CP changes, your beam direction changes as well. It's a trouble, right? So a wedge pair can do that, and you have to tune 3 wedge pairs to achieve individual CEP control. Okay, so that's the essentially generation of light transient, extremely short pulse. The next question is, how do we measure the light transient, or supposedly 2.1 femtosecond in the ideal case? How to measure it? I raised this question, is SHG frog or spider applicable? Why? The first issue is GVM walk-off. Group velocity mismatch walk-off can be understood by this figure. The red one means the fundamental pulse, the input pulse, the unknown pulse you want to measure. Okay? To do frog, what do you have to carry out? Second harmonic generation, right? So you send your unknown pulse into this piece of nonlinear crystal of thickness L. Okay? So this is the entrance, this is the exit. So at the entrance, SHG occurs immediately. So maybe S second harmonic signal created at the entrance. But after that, it propagates at group velocity at second harmonic band, while the input pulse continues to propagate at its own group velocity, which are different. They are different, right? So if you look at the exit, when the input pulse is here, it creates a second harmonic signal here. But meanwhile, the entrance second harmonic signal only travels to this point because of the lower group velocity, right? Then what is the output you should observe? This one, right? A stretched pulse because of the mismatch between fundamental group velocity and the second harmonic group velocity. Okay, is it clear for you? This is so-called GVM walk-off. So a very short fundamental pulse, but at the output, you might have a broader second harmonic pulse. And this problem will be even more serious if either of two things happens. The first one is group velocity mismatch is serious. Okay, 这两个群速度差很多，那当然这个问题很严重。Second, the crystal thickness is longer. This issue is even more serious. Okay. This is the time domain perspective. How about the frequency domain? If you have a broad second harmonic pulse in the time domain, what happens in your frequency domain? You should have a narrow second harmonic bandwidth, right? So we can look at the same issue at different perspective, the frequency domain perspective. This is the formula. Second harmonic spectrum, complex spectral amplitude, is proportional to the product of two functions. The blue one is called nonlinear polarization spectrum, which is the autoconvolution of fundamental spectrum. But it's not a surprise because autoconvolution in the frequency domain means what in the time domain? small a of t times small a of t, which is square of a of t, which is second harmonic as we expect, right? Okay, so this is nothing new. But in addition to this one, totally coming from the input pulse, there is a contribution from the crystal H. Okay, this is a phase matching spectrum. Okay, illustrated as the red curve in the figure. So the output second harmonic spectrum is not only determined by your input pulse, which is the autoconvolution of the fundamental spectrum, can be very broad. But if your filter function due to the crystal is very narrow, after the product, the output is narrow. That's why you have a broad second harmonic pulse in the time domain. They are essentially the same, but in different perspectives. Time domain, frequency domain. In time domain, it's called GVM walk-off. In frequency domain, it's called narrowed second harmonic bandwidth due to the insufficient phase matching bandwidth, the red curve. Okay. Any question? So when this happens, if you try to measure the light transient with second harmonic generation frog, you might need to use prohibitively thin crystal, too thin to be realizable. 因为你的脉冲实在太窄了，你的这一个频宽太宽了，你为了不发生 filter， 你需要的这个 phase matching bandwidth 就极宽，宽到你要用很窄很窄的晶体，窄到你根本拿不到那一种晶体，没办法。Okay, yes.
Why does the thin crystal has a broad, very broad second harmonic bandwidth?
Thin crystal?
Yep.
If thin crystal, this issue is unimportant. So you have narrow second harmonic pulse. That means in the frequency domain, you have very broad output spectrum. The red curve is much broader than the blue one. You will have that case. 所以你这个的宽度就是反比于你的晶体，晶体越窄，这个红色的 curve 就越胖，胖到超过蓝色就 OK 了嘛，再胖也没有用了。OK. Second issue, GDD induced the test pulse distortion. Okay. We have seen this figure before, right? The pulse can get broadened when traversing the crystal. This is the input pulse. This is your crystal. At the output, you might get this, a stretched pulse and a chirped pulse. Okay. But what is the problem if we are talking about SHG frog with light transient? Okay. Like this. At the input, your pulse is like this. So after second harmonic generation, you got second harmonic signal like this. At the output, your test pulse, your unknown pulse, has been like this. So what's the corresponding second harmonic? Could be like this, right? Narrow pulse, narrow second harmonic. Broad pulse, broad second harmonic. Locally, I mean locally. 就是我进去是窄脉冲嘛，所以窄脉冲所产生的倍频应该也是窄的。出来的这一点中间都不管哦，出来的这一点已经变塌了嘛，它产生的倍频应该也是宽的。那中间我就不画了哈，中间应该就是越来越宽嘛。Okay, so what happens if you just capture your second harmonic power spectrum as required by frog? 你就是装一个光谱仪，把出来的倍频量下来。你量到的是什么 ？Can you measure this or this? No, you can't. What you actually measure is, averaged one. Right? You cannot tell. You just capture the output second harmonic signal. It should be something average from here to here， 你只量到一个糊掉的平均的结果。Okay, so when your crystal itself is thick enough such that your output pulse is already different from the input pulse, error must occur because you cannot assume your signal is from this one or this one. It's mixed. Okay. Let me show you one example to see how serious this problem could be. You can see a lot of different power spectra in this figure. It came from our joint research group. The black dashed curve means the pump spectrum from the disulfide laser. So 800 nanometer in center. Bandwidth is narrow. Okay, and we use this pump pulse to drive supercontinuum generation with several thin plates, quartz plates, maybe in this case the silica plates. After one thin plate, we got the yellow spectrum. You can see some spectral broadening. Second plate included, you see the green spectrum significantly broadened. Third plate, fourth plate, you see broader and broader spectrum. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spectra here. Each power spectrum corresponds to a unique transform limited pulse width, right? And we use this 5 transform limited pulse width and the BBO crystal to see what happens if these 5 transform limited pulse passes through, after passing through the BBO crystal, what is the output pulse duration? And we assume if the pulse is broadened by 5%, we decide SAG frog will fail. Okay. And we use that criteria to determine what is the longest BBO crystal you can use. Okay, is it okay for you? 好，所以我就是自己设一个条件，说输入脉冲跟输出脉冲比，如果展宽了5% 以上，就叫做失败，因为我假设5% 以内这个差距还够小，所以这个跟这个没有差太多 ，maybe 有 SAG frog 还可以 work 啊，超过5% 我就假设失败。那这个 criteria 就会给我一个最长的 crystal thickness， 因为再长它就不止展5%了。OK， this is the pump pulse criteria. You can see the pump pulse duration is 23 femtosecond. BBO crystal can be as thick as 1.7 millimeters. 哦，这个很容易拿到1.7 millimeter 厚的 BBO， 很容易拿到，都可以量。Okay, so it's quite safe to measure 23 femtosecond pulse by BBO crystal with SAG frog. But if you use after first plate, pulse duration reduced, maxima crystal thickness reduced as well. And point by point, let's check the final result. After 4 pieces of thin plates, the pulse duration reduced to 2.3 femtoseconds, so by a factor of 10, right? But the longest longest crystal thickness you can access is reduced from 1.7 millimeters to 10 microns. Reduction by 170 times, not just 10 times. 你的脉冲窄了10倍，你可以用的晶体宽度是巨降170倍哦，不是只降10倍哦。Okay, so you can see this is a very serious problem. When you try to push your pulse duration shorter and shorter, GDD would be a limiting factor. Okay, 就是到那个时候，你不用考虑 GVM 哦，你是考虑 GDD 哈，就是待测脉冲自己的展宽就已经让你找不到晶体了。 Okay, so these two are the major problems encountered by SSG frog. Okay, so you have seen some failure in the measurement of 3.9 femtosecond in 2002. And it becomes more serious when you try to push the post duration even shorter. Okay. How about spider? We talk about frog only. How about spider? Will it be the same, or will it be even worse, or will it be better than frog? So think about the spider picture. In frog, we use SSG frog. You have only actually the two identical post replicas interact with each other for SSG. But in spider, it's different. A post pair interacts with a chirp post, but actually not the entire chirp post, but two spatial slices matter, right? Some frequency generation. 所以真正发生非线性在 spider 里面，真正发生非线性的是 short pulse， 所以 broad bandwidth 以及什么 narrow bandwidth 之间的和平，不是两个宽频之间的倍频，所以不太一样啊。If this is true, is spider better than or worse than frog? 不难猜嘛，所有的问题都来自频宽太宽嘛。那 spider 呢，既然已经解决一部分啊，它那个 chirp pulse 里面出力的只有窄频在出力，对不对？所以 in principle, spider is better than frog in this issue, but only for GVM work-off, fast matching bandwidth issue, not for the GDD issue. They are the same. If you want to use spider, you need the SFG crystal. This will happen as well. Okay, but to the first order, if you encounter GVM work-off first, spider is better than frog. But this is second order effect, GDD effect. They are the same. But anyway, spider can still hardly achieve 2.1 femtosecond pulse measurement.